All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We have some people rolling in. I think that's okay. We just have a lot to cover, so I want to make sure we get as much time as possible to do that today. You're joining the webinar with Kognitos for Revolutionizing Automation, Agentic AI with Kognitos' HAL, which is our Hyperautomation Lifecycle platform. We're very excited about today's webinar. And real quick, let me just walk you through the agenda before introducing today's hosts. We can proceed to the next slide there, Neeraj, for us. Great. So two things that I know we're probably going to get those questions. First and foremost, we are recording this webinar actively, and we will share the recording with everybody today. So if whether you're here or you have someone you want to share this with, we'll be providing that recording link within a couple hours following the end of today's webinar, and it will be hosted on Kognitos.com. So if there's anyone else you want to see this content, feel welcome to share it with them, and you'll be getting that link in your inbox from Kognitos. Likewise, we will be having a QA session at the end of today's webinar, and we'll try to answer any questions along the way. So if you have any questions, a couple of my teammates are here. We'll kind of try to answer those in the moment, maybe even prompt today's host to answer it in context, just to be as helpful as possible. Or if you have questions you want answered toward the end, we'll be probably pulling 3, 4, 5 questions from the audience to be able to ask that to today's hosts and help everyone out. If there's any questions that aren't answered, we'll also try to reach out following the webinar to make sure that you have everything that you need to kind of move forward from here. Today's agenda, we'll be kind of going through starting with the state of automation and incumbent automation, going into the really exciting topic of hyperautomation and agentic AI. Specifically, we'll go over to what Kognitos offers in this space with HAL, going into a live demonstration. You're going to see an actual product demonstration today, of course. We want to make sure you know this is a very real thing and not just some theory we're talking about. And then last but not least, we'll touch on that Q&A session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's hosts. You have two really accomplished and excellent hosts today, and we're in for a real treat. First and foremost, you have founder and CEO Benny Gill, who is the leader here at Kognitos, founded the company in 2020, went live out of stealth mode in 2022, has a tremendous amount of experience, and we'll share some of that with you today, as well as Neeraj Mathur, who is the VP of Solutions Engineering at Kognitos, and has his own amazing history there, is actually the co-author of Intelligent Automation, Bridging the Gap Between Business and Academia, and previously led the Center of Excellence for Automation at VMware. So Benny and Neeraj, thank you both for hosting this today, and very excited for what's in store. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Really looking forward to this webinar and conversation with you all. Myself, Neeraj Mathur, as Joe mentioned, I run solution engineering here at Kognitos, come from AI and automation background for last many years, actually, across multiple industries as well, and co-authored a book on intelligent automation, participating in the industry quite actively also on that. So looking forward to this conversation and handing over to Benny.
Thank you, Neeraj. Also, did you write the book before generative AI was there?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so he wrote all the words himself manually. That's good. No automation there for you.
Yes.
Hi, Benny Gill, founder and CEO of Kognitos. Started this company 4 years ago to up-level the language that machines understand. Machines have understood programming languages, drag and drop, RPA, and we have been trying to train humans to learn the language of machines. There are only 26 million people in the world, growing 10% year over year, who can speak the language of machines. But I wanted to see if we can change it and switch the game so that we train the machine to speak the language of humans. And here we are. Now it is becoming possible, and happy to share the latest and greatest that we have. There is a huge potential. There's a word called hyperautomation, and it has been there in the industry for some time. It means whatever can be automated must be automated, will be automated. Now, we have tried in the past many tools. RPA market went ahead with automating mundane tasks, 3 billion in revenue, all put together, year over year, growing maybe 20%. There is $1 trillion potential for automation every year. This is a Gartner number for 2026. The only way you do that is you use a different architecture, different platform. And that platform will be based on AI, but also will be based on certain new ways of thinking about automation, which is what HAL is about. How do you hyper automate? It's all about figuring out maintenance, life cycle. How does it not become a headache once you have automated? That's what we wanted to do. Let's go to the next slide. There is a generational change that we are now witnessing. Generation 1 were the tools that brought in just systems or records. That's generation 1. Generation 2 was RPA, no code, low code. These are stitching together different tools with some requirement of developers. The real question, anytime you're using a tool for automation, is when the tool breaks, who do you call? Like when something is not working, who do you call? Because that determines the cost of maintenance of the platform. With generation 2, you are calling a developer. Gen 3, the goal is you are not calling a developer. You're calling the subject matter expert who is the expert on the business side. The language of all interaction, even debugging, is natural language. And in that space, there are two kinds of folks. We are calling it agentic AI, but there are two kinds of agentic AI. One is goal-driven or ad hoc, meaning I say, go get me coffee. Now that's a goal. You can get me coffee any way you want. I don't care how you get me coffee, just get me coffee, right? I have to win. The planning and all that is done by the AI or by the human. I call it ad hoc tasks. And I just care about the result. OpenAI, great for that. A lot of agentic platforms, great for that. The other one is process oriented. I say, please onboard this new employee, but I'll tell you which steps to follow. And these are the steps that we have decided as a team to follow. You might be smart, you might come up with a better way of doing it, but I don't want you to do that. Follow these processes. That's how we deal with humans. And that is how businesses deal with mission critical processes. We write standard operating procedures. Those are meant to be repeatable, and the process is meant to be followed either by human or by agents. So we call it agentic process automation, where agents follow process. That's what Kognitos is about, right? So that's how we separate the two. In the agentic world, there are a few pillars around which we started 4 years ago and wanted to build a platform that would be leverageable in spite of all the concerns around AI. And the inspiration has been Tesla. In spite of all the concerns around self-driving car will go get into an accident, Tesla has been successful because of one simple thing, the steering wheel. The steering wheel is something that has two properties. One, you do not need to be a pilot of an airplane to drive the steering wheel. 1 billion people know how to drive the steering wheel. Two, no matter what the AI engine says, the steering wheel is trustworthy. If you turn it to the right, it will turn to the right. AI engine could could disagree, doesn't matter. Human is in control. How do we bring that same paradigm is what we were thinking to agentic AI automation in the enterprise. The idea is trust the agents, but verify. So you should be able to verify what the agent is going to do. That's very important in business process. Checking it after the fact is not, you can do it for certain operations, but not for payments or something. I won't check after the fact that did the payment go in the right place. I'll check before that, right? Agents must follow an editable process, meaning I have a 10-step process for onboarding a new vendor or for paying an invoice. But next month, the CFO says, you know what, let's change it. I need to be able to edit it. I will not want to go back to an AI agent and say, give a high level prompt, and then it'll generate net new 11 steps, and I have to monitor each one of them and figure out what's going to happen. Editability in a narrow fashion is important. Therefore, the whole document of the process needs to be visible to the human. We need systems that remove non-determinism from the processes that businesses run. It's all about, is it deterministic or is it non-deterministic? For certain use cases in marketing, or you can use non-determinism, that's fine. But in finance and legal and HR and all, you need deterministic stuff, right? And that's how humans deal with humans as well. We program humans through standard operating procedures. Those are deterministic. So we want to program agents in a deterministic fashion. And troubleshooting and edge cases. This is the huge thing. Any kind of automation, agentic or not, any software. The challenge is we spend enormous amount of effort on the long tail of edge cases. Even today, people in Oracle are fixing database bugs. Is the long tail of things. What happens if this one thing gets corrupted and all of that? It never ends. Business processes have a longer tail of edge cases because the process changes, the business changes, the third party applications change. It'll never stabilize. And that has been the Achilles heel of all automation. And that's why the bubble is still at 3 billion. How do you make sure that you are happy with whatever you have automated and go on to automate the next set of 5 things you want to do? The only way is that the platform allows you to say, you know what, don't worry about the long tail. The human can help. Just like when I get an intern, I'm there to help with the edge cases. The intern does 80% of my job. That's great. On day one, that's the platform. That is very useful, and that's what we built. So we call it the Hyperautomation Lifecycle platform that allows you to build intelligent agents that follow process. So think about agent being split into 2 pieces. The planning brain of the agent that will plan the process for you, but it expresses the plan to you in natural language. You edit it, you approve it, and after that, the agent runs it in a diligent fashion without deviating from it, without hallucinating. And there is the ability of pulling in a human for edge case handling. So you can do happy path and a little bit more and get 80% of the benefit and go to the next and the next. That's the whole idea. So far, the reason of this model being successful are a few. One, this is a tool that is in natural language, not just writing the automation, but debugging. Like when things go wrong, who are you pulling in? Are you pulling in an RPA developer, or are you pulling in the business expert who does it manually, the processor of the process? We support a large number of use cases. There are multiple departments in enterprises, finance, legal, sales. All of them have standard operating procedures. Again, we are talking about non-ad hoc. We're talking about repeatable processes. Those are interpreted by our Kognitos brain, which is a neurosymbolic engine. I'll talk a little bit about that. That understands a whole lot of AI skills and also traditional skills. So think about your enterprise systems, Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, Excel, IDP, and forecasting analysis. All of those things are skills that the Kognitos brain taps into, looks at your SOP and goes and does those things. Could be private cloud, public cloud, behind a VPN, all of those things, your own LLM. Those are the things that we do. The reason it is trusted is because there's a steering wheel. There's a human review possible. You don't need a developer to come and prove to you that this is going to do what you asked me to do. You don't need a prompt engineer either to fine tune it and all of that. When things go wrong, you pull in the same person who used to do it manually. And that is why I call it everybody's tool in natural language. We are making the consumption of AI skills as fast as possible. So the industry is building AI skills every month. How do you take those AI skills, wrap them into a simple natural language one-liner, and give it to a business user without necessarily the business user talking to IT, buying a new AI tool, onboarding it, and all of that? So that's what we are trying to do, make it really simple. And finally, there's a new system of record emerging here. Most automation tools are stateless. They will automate something. And if you want to figure out what happened last month, why was this decision made? Why was this payment made wrong? You cannot figure it out. You need a developer to look at logs, which are kind of anemic most of the time. Our system is a time machine. It records everything. You can go back in time, get everything you want. I'll let Neeraj talk about why he is sort of why did he join us, right? I mean, he was at VMware running the RPA practice and saving millions of hours for VMware. There were certain issues, and with Neeraj's help, also we are trying to solve that. Neeraj, you want to take up?
Sure, thanks, Vinny. So as Vinny mentioned, in a real world, when we were running one of the largest COE, there were some key challenges actually which brought us into the world of Kognitos as well at that point of time. What we mean by this slow progress is really related to the back and forth interaction which you need between the business SME, RPA developer, support, all that goes back and forth at the time of developing the automation, at the time of troubleshooting, at the time of testing, at the time of even when you are maintaining it for months and months, right? So that actually really adds a lot of effort and of course the time to really maintain that, build and maintain that. The limited scale aspect is really related to how the world of RPA and intelligent automation bots are really built, right? So you need to really deploy them on a virtual machine, or you need to deploy them in some form in a Docker image, right? So that requires some effort there as well, but then it actually really limits your ability to number of VMs which you have, or number of VMs which you can really deploy. Yes, you can do 3:1 ratio, 4:1 ratios after building a lot of efficiencies, but there is still a limit, to which you can really scale there. The cost aspect really relates to this. This is not just only the licensing part of it. Of course, that's there, but it's also the cost which is involved to maintain that sort of infrastructure, to build that sort of infrastructure, and then also to have people to support that sort of infrastructure and all the slow progress aspect which I mentioned. The last part, which I'm sure most of you on this call would also agree with based on all the experience, is the fragile nature of when you're doing this through UI, right? So any automation which you build it through UI, there are differences between the low-level development or testing environment and the production environment itself. So right on day one itself, when you migrate from where you tested to the production environment, things breaks because those environments are not similar, right? API to a great extent actually support that, especially when you are able to make those APIs consistent easily, then you could do it on the UI side as well. So these were the key challenges which really helps us build into this. Now, even during the life cycle of building those automation, right? You're writing that, you're testing it, you're deploying it, you're monitoring how it is working as well, and you do a continuous troubleshooting and debugging on. These are like individual tasks. Writing is done at one place, testing is done differently, deployment is completely on a different environment on virtual machines. That's where you monitor, troubleshoot, also bring back to the developer environment. So there are a lot of broken pieces which has to be put together as well. And you'll see shortly in the demo that how the hyperautomation lifecycle, which Kognitos is building, allows you to actually support that as well. So moving on quickly on this is how we look at this problem space. And as I said, I'll go over this quickly, and you'll see all of this in the demo also in a bit. So auto write, this is where you write that in natural language processing, English language. It allows you to really build that. Test part is also where you can actually build the regression test suite and make it repeatable testing. The deployment, again, it's a serverless deployment. So you just say publish, and when you start what we call it as run, it actually launches currently AWS Lambda. That's where the deployment happens automatically. Monitoring, as Binny was highlighting about, seeing the value, seeing the when you are doing the run and seeing the exceptions on that, you should be able to see and monitor those as well if you need to. And the debug aspect is also related to seeing every single line in English, showing you the input and output every single run, and you're able to actually debug that in a lot of automated fashion as well. So in interest of time, as I mentioned, this is where you can really build your SOP in English, and Binny is going to show us quickly. which you really take that SOP, build that English related code on that and execute that on Kognitos platform. Similarly, on the testing, I'll show you how you can really build the regression suite using your previously successful runs or whatever you want to test against. So that actually takes away the whole effort of building what I used to call golden copy of your data set, because you are really using your real world runs to mimic that. Similarly, in deployment, serverless, Benny will show you just a publish button takes care of that. And monitoring will show how the exceptions are handled, how you can bring in human guidance into the process as well. And finally, the debugging and monitoring part of that as well. So with that, Benny, I'll hand it over to you for the demo. I'll stop sharing so that you can start sharing as well.
Yeah, cool. All right, if also people, if you're curious why are two hands coming on screen, so Neeraj is right here. And he's here for good mojo. Joe was asking, hey, let's do recorded demos. I said, no, let's try live. So hopefully, Neeraj, just good luck here with me. All right, so you can see my screen? I think so. All right, so here is our platform, and you can go and tell it what you want to do. I have a note here. In interest of time, I'm gonna copy a part of my SOP into it, and while it's working on it, I'll explain what it does. So I have a PO, purchase order. I want to get the customer company name total from the purchase order, and I want to look at an opportunity in Salesforce SFDC that is like the customer company name. I want to match the amount from the PO to SFDC. And if they match, I want to submit for approval, and I want to change the stage into closed one. I want to attach the PO to the opportunity, send an email to myself, and if it doesn't match, send another email, and so on and so forth, right? So I will show you, it wrote some things. I'll show you Salesforce for now. This is my Salesforce instance. Here I have a bunch of opportunities. Here is GenePoint ELA, which is of interest here. New Gentic, another one, and there's a bunch of others, right? So here, if you look at GenePoint ELA, it's a negotiation review, and New Gentic also there. Okay, so what happened here actually? In Kognitos, we have something called Kognitos Brain that takes your high-level prompt. This is the goal that you're giving the agent. Instead of just going and doing it without any confirmation from you, we have split the agentic thought process into two pieces. First piece is planning. Planning can be highly creative. Planning can be hallucinating in some cases, but we want to explain to the user, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Tell me if it's right or wrong. So if it needs to ask questions, it'll ask questions. Otherwise, it'll just give me a proposal. Now, if I take the proposal, I see what it is doing, extract the data from the PO, and getting Salesforce's opportunity, I can accept that. And you see there is this conversion from a paragraph SOP into a language that we support, right? One thing that I want to specify and ask is that, the PO is a document, right? So I say, like, I will be giving you a document. It won't be like an email. It won't be like a text. So simple English where I can explain what I would like to do. Let me just run this thing. Well, we can talk about exactly what is happening right now. So here we have converted a high-level prompt into a more detailed plan that will run on our platform, right? Now, this process is actually a very hard process in the industry. People are finding, like, how do we do that? People struggle with, is it production ready? And all of those things. What we are doing is, show it to the user. User might say, you know what? I don't like the fact that the subject of the email is opportunity update. I want to tweak it. So give them the access for that instead of writing a whole Python program that maybe if you go into OpenAI, it'll write a Python program, and then you need a developer to reason about it, right? Okay, so I took this process and I'm running it. The Kognitos Brain is saying, I understand this language. This is both a language that a business user can reason about and our platform can read. Now it is running it. The first thing it says, you said the PO is a document, but where's the PO? So it asks me, so the brain is asking, what is the PO? Can you please provide me? So let me go ahead and attach a purchase order. So this is conversational. We have built the interpreter for this language, natural language, from grounds up. And that never likes to crash because humans don't crash. Cognitive brain doesn't crash. Python will crash, .NET will crash, C#, any computer programming paradigm crashes when something is missing, because blaming the developer has always been okay for the last 50 years. No longer true. We should not blame humans. The interpreter needs to be smart, ask questions anytime it gets confused. So first question it had asked, what's the PO? I gave the PO. Let's take a look at the PO that I gave. Here is the purchase order I had uploaded. If you see companies, Gene Point, this is a purchase order. Total amount is $322,000. So that's a PDF I gave him. Next thing is saying, I want to extract data from the PO and from the prompt, customer, company name, total, these are the two things. Did it extract that? Yes, it extracted those two things, Gene Point, and then so that it extracted. Next step was get Salesforce's opportunity. That's like the customer name, but it says it needs guidance. Let me see what guidance it needed. Here. Okay, so it found two ops. There's the ELA, there's a Gene Point op. Let me look at the Salesforce. And in fact, there are two. The one that I want is this one, Gene Point ELA. Okay, so that's number one. So I want to ask it to use number one. Hopefully it understands what I wanted to do. Runtime indicates that the PO document is okay. So it didn't do what I wanted to do. So like say, I go here. The question should still be here. Please provide. Oh no. Let me go here. Multiple values were found for the opportunity. Yeah. Here, Gene Point op and Gene Point ELA. It was the ELA that I wanted, so I can submit it. All right. So now, normally in any other system, it would have either picked the wrong one or it would have crashed and burned. In our case, the Kognitos brain is smart enough to anytime it sees any ambiguity, it'll ask a question and go ahead with that. Okay, I'll show you, it didn't quite work this time. I'll show you an example of when it works. Here, there's a Salesforce opportunity that it found. It gets the data's total. If the opportunities amount matches with the data's total, if you look at that thing, so there is this data, 322,000, and the total, if they match, then it goes and submits the opportunity for approval and sets the stage and all that, right? So that's how it does. Going back here, I want to see, did it get the right opportunity? It got the right opportunity. This gives you all the details, Gene Point ELA. All right, let me show you then maybe the recording that I have for this. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So here, we went here. This is just last night. Okay. So here, when it gets the opportunity, I select the Gene Point ELA. And then the Gene Point ELA has $322,000 there, and it has to match with the data total that's coming in. Now the data here is coming from the purchase order, and the opportunity has 322,000 in Salesforce. If the two match, then we are submitting for approval, setting the opportunity to close one. And so as the system is doing that, you can see all the steps being executed. Going back here into Salesforce, you will see The ELA, which was right now in negotiation pending, is now closed won. And also it will add the attachment and add the approvals. So once we refresh the screen, you'll see that now the attachment is added. That's the purchase order. And also approval is all done. So this is doing multiple steps. So we have done IDP, which is you don't need an external document processing thing. You can do it in our platform with one step. And it does backend API integration, Salesforce, and it has updated the opportunity. And after that, it sends an email saying that it has been done. Now, whenever you're generating a plan, that's where agentic systems are weak. So sometimes they will generate a plan that does not work. But if the plan is done, now you can save the plan as a draft process. So once you have tested this plan, you can save it. It's like I'm updating a SFTC opportunity with a PO. In our system, once you save it, it becomes a repeatable process. Now, this repeatable process, you can either run ad hoc as I showed you, or you could say, get the document and save it such that it could be triggered through email. And that is something that our system does. So any automation that you save, it can be triggered via API, triggered through email. It could be triggered just manually as well.
Scheduling.
So here, this automation has a finance draft to update SFDC. This is the email address. Every automation gets an email address. All you need to do is to simply forward a document that you want it to process, and it goes to that endpoint. And notice that there is no bot you have to configure or manage, right? So here I'm sending that automation, a document, and you'll see, let me go a little bit ahead here. So once you send it, the automation comes, and now we are processing it. The first step of it is we are preparing a knowledge graph, right? So the knowledge graph is preparing for running the automation, and this one is about processing the document first. So that's what's happening right now. It's preparing. Let me play this. Okay. Now, once the email comes in, the Kognitos platform converts everything into natural language and gives it to the Kognitos brain and saying, why don't you run it? So here is the document. This is a new document, which is now the new Agentic one, and it has a different company name. So for that different company name, it's going to extract that. This is OCR kind of happening. And after that, it goes into getting the Salesforce opportunity and so on. One feature here to note is anytime the Kognitos brain is confused as to which backend skill to use, here it was confused that should I use to extract or should I use a different way of extracting data? The user can say use to extract and continue. Most of the AI systems that are not deterministic will actually make their own guess and continue, and that makes those things not that reliable. So here we give that response, and then I'll just go through this quickly in interest of time. Now this is going to update another backend system. The new Agentic opportunity is updated, and now you get the email as well. Right. So that's one of our demos that we wanted to show. This is about taking a purchase order, sending it to Salesforce, and then sending an email that is done, all starting from a prompt. Let me try another one. And this one will be around using Excel. Excel is something that is very common. Everybody uses Excel in their daily lives. I wanted to challenge a system where we'll say, I have an Excel and you want to get the table from it. Now, first I want to get the table. This Excel is a large Excel. Let me bring it up as well.
So I have while you're pulling that up, Benny, we're having a couple questions that I think you could maybe answer while you're showing this demo too. Is how does this, truly distinguish between RPA as it relates to sequence and processing? Because, we're looking at this, one example after another, but what if you were doing something in bulk, or, you're used to working with bots where you basically just have one bot working on one process at a time? How is this different?
Yeah. So as I showed you, you can take a process, test it once in a playground, and once you're happy with it, then you create a process, and that's the repeatable process, right? So from that repeatable process, you get an email endpoint, or you get an API endpoint, and you can send one email, you can send 100 emails, 1,000 emails, as many as you want in parallel. That doesn't matter, right? If you have a place where there's an app that can call these APIs, then that also you can do, right? So you don't have to manage infrastructure. There are no bots to monitor here. In fact, if you see, there are no bots that we are showing at all. Yeah. You start with English, and then you can deploy it, and then you start using it. Right now, while we were talking, I said, I have an Excel and I want to get a table from it. And it created some natural language, and I'm saying I want to run it. And as usual, it's anytime it needs some help, it'll ask. So this one is obvious. It needs the Excel file. I have this.
And very quickly to add the question, answer the question about the parallelization of this also, like someone asked about if you need to do that in batch. We have done many use cases where either through email as an attachment, let's say there are 10 invoices which come in one email itself. Each of those can be processed in a separate runs through a parallelization. So this process which Binny has just shown, once it is published, it can be invoked multiple times. Again, in the backend, it's all AWS Lambda, so multiple Lambda gets invoked, and it's actually run there. If you are running this manually, and if you go to, let's say, a SharePoint folder, and there are hundreds of files there which needs to be processed in one batch, it picks up each one of them in one time and then separately run them also in parallel as well. So you can very well easily handle that whichever way you want to handle in a from a parallelization point of view.
Got it. So now here I have a crimes report from Chicago for 2024. There's lots of, it's a large Excel file. And there's a bunch of columns here that talk about the location where the event happened, what was the district, ward, and so on, FBI code. Now, if you look at how long this Excel file is, this is close to, actually, we made it exactly 100,000, something like that. Yeah, so it's a 100,000 line file. Now, traditionally, dealing with very large files has been hard, both for agentic systems as well as traditional RPA systems. Here, we have asked in a prompt, like, I want the first table. Let's see what it has done while we were talking. You see, this is the table that it has created. Now, the Excel could have one worksheet, multiple worksheets, table could be anywhere in the worksheet, and all of those things. So we handle those things as well. Let's do something more interesting. Here I see that there is a district 19 and district 14, 7, all of those. What I would like to do is, let's see. Here, okay, there's an arrest column, false. So maybe I'm curious to find out what are the cases where, so get the cases where there has been no arrest in the 19th district. So this is something like a business user could say, hey, I want to do that. What our platform is geared towards is not just getting you the answer, but getting you an automation that would be repeatable to get the answer in the future. So here it has created something, and I can accept that and run that. So what it is saying is I want to extract a subtable from the table, from the above, and that the row selection is cases with no arrest in the 19th district. Internally, what it has done, it's figured out a more mathematical representation of it. Arrest is false, district is. So it looks at the Excel file, understands the formatting of it, creates an internal representation that you don't have to worry about, but you can verify as well. This is the same thing, trust but verify. Now I must have a subtable here where we should see district 19 arrest false and all of these are this. So this is already now a filter down for me, right? Now, what if I want to do something else where this is district, this is ward. Maybe I want to add another column, maybe with district and ward combined. So I can say, let's say, add a column combining district and ward. This is a spelling mistake. Let's see if it can handle my spelling mistake here. Okay, so district and ward columns, it says it wants to combine it. I accept it again. So here is my planner. Planner looks at what I have and writes. Now it has come up with its column name. It said district dash ward. Now I, as a business user, could say, you know what, I want a different name. All of those I can do. Let me look at the Excel file it has created. This is the one, and you see district ward has been created with 1946. And this is a large file, and it does it rather quickly. So this is an example of how you can start interacting with backend systems, Excel, and now this is just part of the story. There is so much more that we are doing every week. This thing is improving. What we have done is separated out the part where the AI is planning, and sometimes the plan is, one kind, sometimes the other kind, and that's where the human is required to review. Once you like a plan, you can obviously save it. I can save it now, to process crimes or whatever. I can save this, and once saved, it's going to run deterministically for as many times as you want to run it. So that's the idea here. Neeraj, you wanna go ahead and show the other aspect of the product?
Yes. Thanks, Benny. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay, so what you have seen so far using two use cases on Salesforce and Excel is really how to write this, and there are a variety of different things which we can do it. But now, while you're really developing these automations, you obviously need to test them, build the test suite while you are doing it so that you can do a regression testing also on this. So I'm going to very quickly show you the test suite also, so this is where it all starts. You can see that one execution which Binny has shown in our terms becomes one run, right? So in any run in past, you can actually use that run to say, hey, this is actually my successful run. I want to make sure any future runs actually runs just like this, right? So all the values should match and things like that. So you can define your test suite without having any data or a golden copy of data like this, and then really look at the various test runs, whatever you have run. So what I had done, and I'll show you, how I prepared this as well. So what you're seeing here, when I ran this, like 3 different runs went completely successful. I made very minor changes in the English code, and then there was a failure here on 2 of these fields. I modified it again, and then I see that, hey, it is actually running properly. How do you go by this is, so these are all historical runs. As you can see in one of this here, this was the run which as a user I was happy with. And I said, you know what, I want to use this run as my reference. You can use, by the way, multiple runs also. You can add multiple runs in your test suite so that it covers various scenarios. So I said, okay, I want to use this particular one as a reference to compare for all my future runs as well. And that was really added. So if I open up this run, you'll see that the 3 values which I was trying to compare there are really coming from what you see here in the information. So the one which I have marked it here as a star, this is how you pick. So if you have hundreds of fields in your execution and you want to validate all 100, you can do that. If you just want to validate some subset of it as a key portion, you can actually do a comparison on that as well. So you have some historical run, you go there and say, this is what the values which I want to compare it against for all my future runs. And that is actually how you really go and build your test suite. You can add more test runs over there as well. And every time when you just run a test run, it will compare your most recent code with that run, which I picked up over there as well. So that's one way of really doing the regression testing, very powerful. Again, as I said, I'm showing only 3 values here. You can have hundreds of values on doing this. So this is the way of doing the testing on top of what Binny has shown in terms of writing. Binny has also shown you how to deploy that as well. Again, it's all behind the scene, so you didn't have to really do anything there as well. Looks like I see some hand raised here.
Can I share again?
Yeah.
So, yeah, let me share my screen.
Yeah.
I found out there was a simple spelling mistake in what the AI generated. So, this was the thing that I was trying. There was a spelling mistake here, unfortunately. That's the thing. AI, agentic stuff, it'll generate stuff. You got to make sure it's not hallucinating something. Now, I've just fixed that spelling mistake, and I was running it right now. It ran the whole thing through.
Nice.
Now, let me show what it did just while you were talking. So this is GenePoint ELA. We wanted to update it. So if I click on it, now for negotiation thing, I have to refresh that. Now it is closed. So if you see, what it did was it closed one. Right now, what's the time? January 16. Yeah, so 10:44.
Just 2 minutes back.
2 minutes ago, it closed that and it got the approval in, and it also attached the purchase order. So this is all the steps that it did here, right? So this submitting for approval, setting the stage for closed one, attaching the PO, and then it sent an email. Email is here. I got that email 2 minutes ago. Let's look at the email. And this, it says, it's updated to close one. So that's what I wanted to show. But of course, spelling mistake came in the way. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, I see there is a hand raised. Joe, do you want to answer it as well?
There's one question from Tony. How do you want to take that?
I'm not sure what the hand raise, because I think we'd have to promote to mute. Maybe if you wouldn't mind, for those that have their hand raised, you can submit in the Q&A, and then that way we can kind of vocalize your question for you.
Perfect. All right. So while that is happening, let me also go back and show. Binny has covered this to some extent. I just want to actually show, this is where that whole human in the loop and making sure that the steering wheel part, which Binny was referring earlier, becomes even much more powerful. And we are seeing our business users actually really relying on this, right? You may see that, hey, this is actually the kind of automation where human always have to be around. No, this actually could be a completely state-through processing. It picks up, generate these exceptions only on those exceptional cases where you would need, the AI or automation goes and say, hey, you know what, I didn't understand this. Can you help me on that? Right? And it can alert you through email and any other way you need. So it doesn't have to be really done in an attended fashion here. But the important part I which really want to highlight in the interest of time is all these different ways of answering these kinds of requests from the automation, right? So if let's say in this case, it's only asking for a file, so I can just go there and upload a file. There could be a case where, you know what, I can still skip my processing without really using this file. I can skip this step. I can provide no values if it's of certain fields. I can even do some computation if it's a formula which is needed over here. We have used retry also in many times where, hey, you know what, this exception actually occurred because some external dependency was not there and now it's there. So there's nothing else to run on an automation, just retry it, right? Or retry after interval. This write in an answer is actually really a powerful way as well, because it allows you to even write a simple English code also to execute when that sort of exception handle is needed. One last thing which I'll say, which is really this checkbox. We have talked very little about these learnings, but Binny actually has shown you that, hey, this is where it's asking for a file, and I uploaded that file because in order to respond to that exception condition because file was missing. What you could actually also do is essentially say, hey, this is actually going to be the same answer I will have in future. So learn this. right? And use this answer every single time when you run this particular step in this automation. And you can say, always use this answer for this process. It will never ask you again. And that's a way of human really providing the guidance, which actually stays forever for that process execution as well.
Yeah, Neeraj, thank you for sharing that. Actually, that a couple questions came up to this effect. So in either of the use cases that Benny had shared, maybe the number didn't reconcile, right? Or it didn't match. And the question is, then what does it do? So how would you answer that in the context of maybe a learning through exception handling?
Yeah, so I mean, as you have seen, anytime a process is running, it has the ability of asking questions. So it'll say multiple values or didn't match, and it will ask the human here. And the human, as Neeraj was saying, human has many different options of answering that. Human could say, you know what, this step, I'm going to do it for you, because the human and machine are the same. So I'm going to do it for you and I'll give you the answer. You continue from the step after this. That's also possible. Human can say, you got this value wrong in actually that step above, because we can look at the values from every step.
Yeah.
So the business user can see, oh, this is where the wrong value came from. Let me go and fix that. And then you can continue. There's so many different ways of doing that, right? Also, one more important thing, our system can learn, but it can also unlearn.
Yeah.
Very important for businesses to understand that creating automation systems that build habit is something that is wrong, especially in finance and legal, where you want control over processes that can change over midnight. So we show all the learnings in a central place, and you can go and edit them as well. Again, natural language. Yeah. There was some question, right, from people.
Yeah, let me this one was earlier in the session. I think we've touched on some of this, but just to give a good, concise answer. One of the questions was, anonymous attendee here today, if these agents follow a defined SOP or standard operating procedure and need to be verified by humans, that is human in the loop, then what is the key difference, or what are the key differences between agentic and traditional RPA for Kognitos, you think?
So as I said, right, there's a $3 billion bubble and a $1 trillion bubble. What agentic process automation can do is a lot more than what traditional RPA can do, just because it wraps the flexibility of AI with the determinism, if you have a platform like ours, with the determinism of RPA, right? So AI is highly capable of doing all the other cases where, the variations are too high, or the process keeps on changing and you need to adapt. So the number of use cases is actually an order of magnitude more than what RPA could have done.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a good tee up for another question we had, Benny, and Neeraj too. If you think this is relevant, maybe you've come across this. But what are the example use cases for healthcare claims potentially? We have one Sumanta who wrote in, said this process for healthcare claims processing is complex with multiple legacy applications. So, how might an agentic solution, or Cognitos specifically with HAL, attack healthcare claims processing?
And it's a perfect one, right?
Yeah.
So you do not want like a goal-driven agentic plan for that. You want a process-driven. Healthcare claims is very, very process-oriented, and you do have standard operating procedures built in. People follow that. You take that standard operating procedure. Right now, I showed you a one-paragraph thing. The technology is evolving. In 6 months, you could take a whole page, 2-page, 10-page SOP, give it to our system. It will generate deterministic plan in natural language that will, once you test it, it behaves deterministically that way 10 times, 10,000 times, right? And then if while educating one particular claim, if there is an issue, there is something that is not according to plan, it's not going to guess its way through. It's going to raise a question, bring in the human, then the human realizes my SOP is incomplete, or this claim itself is incomplete. At that time, they can tell the system what to do. Should the claim back and say, like, I need more data? All those things is what we provide. It's a perfect use case. We should talk how we can help. Starting off with this simpler components. Building in Lego blocks is highly possible in our platform. You automate one portion, second portion, third portion, and finally connect all of them into a bigger automation.
Yeah, I love that. And Vinny too, because you had kind of talked about it when you were talking about OpenAI and this third generation. So if you're part of an upper mid-market to enterprise organization, there's lots of initiatives to adopt and deploy AI into production environments. How are you thinking, like, where for those on the call today that aren't sure what they should use goal-oriented agents for and what they should use process-oriented agents for, what's a good way, again, just to kind of concisely think about the separation between that, maybe as they're
Yeah.
looking at all the
I
use
think
cases?
if there is a process, you should think about non-determinism. Is that a concern or is it okay? If you think that the goal is more important than the process, I don't care how you get it done, just get it done, then that you should go for goal-oriented agentic platforms. But if you care about the process itself, and the way you know it is when you were hiring humans for the job, did you write down the process or you just gave the goal to the human? Because humans are smart. They are as good as AGI, right? So if you ever write a process, that means you are telling a human, don't be creative, please follow this. That is the indicator. For those kind of processes, you should get an agentic process automation platform where process is the main thing that you're focused on. And then you have to worry about what's the life cycle of the process. How do you edit that process? Do you generate that process every time you run the automation? That's the worst case. Do you generate the automation every time you change a little bit? That is also bad. It's like I'm creating a wedding plan, 200 steps. Every time I change the color of the napkin, the whole wedding plan is recreated, and now there's new things to worry about. You don't want that. So that's how you decide.
Very helpful. And Neeraj, I'm going to give you one to you because I think this is a use case you probably hit a lot. We did a reconciliation use case here, which could expand across business lines and industries. But what about the three-way match? Can Kognitos handle the three-way match situation?
We are doing that already. Yeah. Certainly. It's actually, as Benny showed, it's really writing that code. For us, three-way match is really what the source of the data, right? Once it's there, it's really writing that piece of English phrases and steps, and then execute on that. We have already implemented that for a couple of our customers. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate those questions. If you wouldn't mind, Neeraj, just going to the last, I just want to make sure we cover off those last three kind of options for today's, participants and being here on this webinar. Certainly keep your questions coming. If we have another minute, we can do it. But I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to see this, is that certainly if anybody in your organization has a specific use case they're going after, they just want to understand, can Cognitos help us with this? Let us know. Obviously, reach out to sales@cognitos.com. We're happy to do a personalized demo or a pilot or POC or whatever the situation calls for. So feel welcome to reach us for that. Also, if this content was helpful to you, or if there's something you really want to see from Cognitos and do another webinar, we just put out a rubric for Agentic Solution Review. Please feel welcome to email me directly at joe@cognitos.com. Always love to hear feedback of what we can do to produce something that's most helpful. And lastly, I did put it in the chat. We're very excited to announce that you can actually try a version of Kognitos and HAL yourself just by going to cognitos.com, hitting that free trial button, and signing up today. We're taking feedback all the time. We're always rolling out the latest features, even in beta, so you can kind of test the latest and greatest from Kognitos. And it's very important to us that we get as many people as possible in there to really get access to this. So, your thoughts, everybody?
The more the system is used, the better it gets, and we are constantly looking at how what are the areas where it needs improvement, what are the things that people want it to do that we still don't have, and that's how we iterate. So definitely encourage everybody to give it a shot, and we'll try and help you as best as we can. And every month you should see a big leap forward with this technology.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. I think that's all the time we have for, but really great stuff. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Neeraj, and thank you all the participants for joining us. Hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Take care.